I'm Lola.
And I'm Mamuna. Together, we have a combined 35 years of experience within the tech scene in North America and Europe.
We talk about the highs, the lows, the WTFs of navigating the technology industry and answer your questions about navigating tech careers.
This is Lost in Tech. Okay, so I think most of us have been on social media.
This feels like it's going to be juicy tea. Come on, let's do the tea.
So, no, but have you seen the CEO and the CPO, Chief People Officer of the Astronomer, getting caught at the Coldplay concert? Yes. Yeah. So if you haven't, imagine you're at a Coldplay concert and someone pans the camera across to the VIP section and there's a well-known CEO of a tech company and a very cozy moment with his Chief People Officer. And the clip goes viral because of how they reacted, right? And so now everyone's thinking, like, is this an open secret or a corporate scandal? And I think some of the interesting dynamics we can kind of dive into here, because these are people and these people are associated to families and stuff. So we don't want to talk about the people, but more so the like tech company dynamic component of this. So I think the first part to start out is like thinking about the power dynamics and the ethics of this. You know, how do these CEO HR relationships complicate trust, impartiality for the company, or how does it send a message to the broader organization?
I have so many thoughts on this one because there's kind of like that. I have two-sided thoughts as well. This is another one where I argue with myself and against myself. The anarchic individual part of me is like, how dare a job dictate who you can be with, right? Like you were there to pump out some code, write some documents, you know, contribute to something. But what you do in your personal time, and frankly, it was their personal time. They were not in the office. It should be up to them. And I do think to a certain extent, maybe there are certain roles where you don't want that to happen because it might create safety issues, like maybe in the military or in, you know, policing or whatever. At the same time, I look on the flip side and I'm like, if there are any two people that a relationship is highly problematic, it is probably between your CEO and the people officer. Because like we know HR people are not there to protect employees.
No.
They are there to protect the company from humans doing human. And if the person put in that role is able to behave in this compromised way, best believe that every employee who has been terminated or sanctioned for similar things is pissed right now.
Yeah. And they have a case.
Right? They kind of have a case. They have a case. You're like, why do you get to do this and I don't get to do this?
And it probably doesn't just stop there, right? It probably now can spread out to other things where you may be telling employees, hey, you can't do this thing. I'm like, well, you do that thing. So why can't I do this one?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that question of do as I say, not as I do, as in any scenario, it couldn't have happened to two worse roles. Like if, for example, the chief technology officer and the chief finance officer were caught in a relationship and maybe they had partners, I mean, it's not going to be great, but I don't think the uproar would be the same. It would be different. But the dynamic between HR, the head of the people part of your business, and the head of the company, that dynamic kind of has to maintain the sacred distance because it does... It creates an influence that there's just no world where that is going to be a net good thing.
Yes. And think about now the next layer of it, which probably was either the same day or hours later, which was now the board. They have a board, right? They're a well-known tech company. I would say I did not know them before. That's me.
I didn't. I do now.
Yeah. I mean,
unicorn.
Branding,
so,
yeah. You know. But like, should the board now have to intervene in that relationship? And is there any type of like legal or fiduciary risk when teams are entangled with an executive like that?
Again, I go to those two sides of my brain thing because I'm like, of course the board has to get involved. They are now the two most famous people on the internet for like a whole 5 days. And as a company, you literally, I remember building products that manage reputational risk. So if you can imagine, I remember years ago, we would work with banks, PR companies, and we created like products that had dashboards for oil companies. And I did not work directly for the oil company. I worked for an agency. I kept some distance from that. But these dashboards were being sold into the biggest companies in the world. And what it was a reputational risk map, not financial numbers, not stock market, because if you could see sentiment going in one way, you could predict how many days before it hit the stock price. And so managing reputational risk is an active investment area, and there's technology dedicated to this. The board has to take action because I guarantee every metric and every dashboard is being flashed by this incident. Now, the thing that you said at the beginning of this, though, is a whole bunch of people had never heard of this company before, though.
Right.
So my question
now, though,
what are they going to do with this fame? Like, if I'm on that board, I'm going to be looking at, okay, there are some operational concerns. There is definitely a reputational risk flag. But we've probably got the highest visits to the website, and we've got a bunch of this. And is there a good way to spin this? I don't know.
That's like it's crazy. I feel like, that one, that is hard because, if I had no real humanity and I was like,
but
I'm going to leverage, I would probably use this to hire a CEO that's like someone, like, hey, there's publicity around this. People are watching us now. Like, there's an opportunity for this person to come in and like take it from where we were to where we're going to be. And I would just like build publicly, like, here's the CEO search, like here, like, and just like get people to kind of engage us because we're public now. People know who we are. Like, I'd use social media to I wouldn't speak about the people again, but I would now like talk more about the company, like what we're doing and like bring people in along the journey and like continue to build this public profile. But, that's, I
want to believe that there's somebody on that board who might have vision to recognize the moment. But I'm also
sure someone is.
Yeah, but I think I don't ever, and having grown up in highly religious settings, I would never underestimate how, a sense of perceived superior morality and piousness can get in people's way. And I think a lot of people will be obsessed with the idea of doing the right thing and shutting this down, actually. And they may be louder, more traditional, stoic voices, even though, this company was probably desperately wanting to have this many TikTok mentions and this many followers on social media and this much attention to any press statement that they might release. Like, they're never going to get this much limelight again.
Yeah.
But do they recognize that opportunity for what it is, or do they just want to come across and be like, cheaters never prosper, we sacked them and we shut it down and we improved the moral code in our company and we did all of these other pious things that, sure, I'm sure that those things matter to some people and they probably should matter to more, but honestly.
So my thought here is if people had a chance to read or listen to our recent recording, we talked about Mountainhead. And I think this is what separates people. Like that morality is the separation.
Ooh, okay. I like where you're going, but I want to challenge you on that.
Sure.
I want to challenge you on that. I think part of the reason we are where we are is we put too much stock on this idea of certain behaviors and signals that we believe good people adhere to, right?
Correct.
And I think if you think about this in the context of the US, I don't have voting rights in the US, so this is my personal, not official opinion. I think one of the biggest issues with the Democratic Party and its weaknesses in the last few political cycles is it's very good at virtue signaling and very bad at delivering change.
Yes. Okay.
And I think in the case of this astronomer scenario, my point is it's not actually a question of like purely moral and the right thing. Like the issue at hand is between those individuals and their partners and family members. In theory, it should have nothing to do with the company.
Correct.
The company's opportunity is to say, hey, we've got a moment in the spotlight here. What will we do with it? And I think they won't take that opportunity because they will decide that it is their business that these people have relationship drama, and they will operate on that virtue signaling premise as opposed to just be like, I mean, dude, it's kind of uncomfortable with you. Are you okay? Like, okay, well, let's get back to business. And maybe you need a break. Maybe you need some time away from work. Let me be human and allow you to be human. And maybe she is traumatized and has been struggling with people issues for years. And she's, at a point where maybe she needs to make a different act. To me, approaching them as humans first, as opposed to virtue signaling, would be what I would be minded to do. And I pray that the board, because when is it? Like, there's been no official statement from the company, so we don't know.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, I would hope the virtue signaling doesn't take over and above the like
opportunity.
Yeah.
I think it was it Duolingo that decided they announced, I don't have all the facts here, but like they announced or they indicated that they were going to let go of a number of people and replace a lot of the content generation with AI, right?
Yeah,
and
I can kind of tell, but yeah.
They lost a lot of followers. I was looking at TikTok and people were like, oh, I'm no longer following them or whatever. But then Duolingo started to now try to adjust their media to ride that wave to be like, oh, we're in our flop era and like whatever, right? Like they're like, okay, we're going to try to embrace the space we're in. Yeah. And I almost feel like it could just be, just is not the right word. It could be that a company in a moment like this decides to say, hey, we're going to have our socials, not necessarily, I feel like they can use them to ride the wave and build 100%. Like momentum, right? And I don't think it has to be but I do think that part of that is monetary. Like you're trying to think about ways to monetize a situation, but not as directly, right?
100%.
And so Go ahead.
No, I think that's exactly the point. It's like if you've suddenly got 1 million followers overnight because your CEO did something, you've probably got 3 days where you can talk about anything else that you want people to see and hear. And folks will be there and be like, what is this? But now they know. Now they know who you are. Now they know what you do. Now they might know about a product you just launched. They might be trying to even find threads of like gossip and whatever in all of that. Ooh, yeah. You don't need to tell them a damn thing about the people. Right. And you can ride that wave for as long as it goes. And maybe at the end of it, you lose a ton of followers, but hopefully those followers are less, they're still more than you had before and they now know you. I think when you're a company like they are, you probably have very little to lose. What I worry about, though, is that I don't think that's the pressure they're going to be feeling. I think the pressure will come from a place of piousness and morality because of the specifics of the individuals. And this is where I like I said, this is where I maybe lean more on like the anarchism of like, most people, especially in tech, you spend more time at work than you probably spend with your family members. Yeah. So if you think about the chances that you find a significant other in the workplace, it's high. And as long as there's not like a power issue, as long as there isn't like actual abuse or something that's genuinely criminal, then it should be your business. Now, it's definitely in poor taste for HR and the CEO to be hooking up like this and going to a concert in a private box. But at the same time, outside of the fact that their job titles are conflict, I don't think it's public. It should be public that everybody else is involved in what happens to them. I think it's like, I want to be a human at work, and I want to see my leaders be held accountable to being human too, but not more than human, not superhuman in that sense.
I only think it's as public as it was because of the reaction.
Yeah, it's hard not to react that way. It's like, how would you?
Totally. But I think if there was no reaction, no one would have ever seen the clip. And
I just had a very super sneaky thought. And I'm like, what if they planned it? Because, okay, so again, Gen Alpha, Gen Z may not know this, but Coldplay has been doing a tour. So it has been known that they do this kiss cam at every single venue that they have been at on this tour. If you know kiss cam is happening and you can see 3 couples ahead of you, why would you be in a compromising position? Because you know what the camera people are doing? Looking for you.
Scanning.
So if you're there and you don't want to be caught on the kiss cam, maybe you just stand next to each other for a minute. Maybe you go get a drink. Use that moment to go to the toilet if you don't want to be discovered. Or you always had a plan. Because if you look at the position they were in beforehand, it was like they were joking. They were loving watching the kiss cam, and they were the exact position that the kiss cam was going to come and find them. So like, anyway, that's my conspiracy brain. It's like, maybe this was all planned.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, maybe the subconscious part of them wanted to get caught. Who knows?
There's also that. Yeah.
Double standard. What if the genders were reversed?
I think it's the same for me.
Yeah.
Wait, when you say not the genders, but like the roles, she was the CEO and he was the head of people.
Exactly. She was the CEO and he would be the people officer.
Same. I think the business questions remain the same in that those 2 roles should never or should recognize the risk to the business of them hooking up in the same way that like a military commander and their lieutenant probably shouldn't be married, right? Because they're going to make very weird decisions in the same squadron. So I think whether he or she had one role or the other, it's the fact that it was those 2 roles, I think, that made it bad. I do think, for the Reddit, am I the asshole, and TikTok generation, the fact that he was still married just took this to the moon. It would have been amazing if they were just a couple in the early stages and they didn't want to be seen yet. And it was just about work. Yeah. And both of them were single and available, but it's just a job. But I think the fact that there was like an element of a family implication, unfortunately, made this the perfect titillation for the entire world to be obsessed with for a while. So,
good luck to them.
Good luck to them. Good luck to the employees of the company.
Yeah.
Like
be on LinkedIn, like, who works there?
I know I refuse to do that, but I hope that they feel safe and protect. I hope that they don't see weird consequences of like new team policies that restrict their ability to live normal lives. Like, what if there was a polyamorous member of the team who was living in a throuple and, but that's nobody's business. But now if that information comes out and the business policies changed, they could be sacked, right? Yeah. Those are the implications that I hope don't come to bear, but you never know. So if you're listening, you're the Astronomer board, do right by your people, man.
Yeah, there you go.
So people might have noticed that we got changed.
Yes.
Magic of the internet and editing.
Magic.
But that's because we managed to jump in before this episode went out to confirm that Astronomer took our advice, even though we gave it and it was never out in the public. They obviously magically felt us giving them pertinent advice And they have done what I think is the most perfect PR response to this whole situation.
Yes.
And we will link it in the show notes for those who have not seen it. But I am like, yes, hat tip, clap, bow down, everybody go hire their PR team. That is exactly how you respond to this kind of drama.
Mm-hmm. It was, I think it was great because they did not touch anything personal.
Nope.
They didn't dive into the scandal or the details. They used the thoughts to promote the brand in like a very tasteful way, which is...
Absolutely. So they put out a PR video, which it's just a video. There's literally no, I think it says on X, update from Astronomer or something like that. And it is Gwyneth Paltrow. And for all of our super young Gen Z and Gen Alpha who don't know who she is a British actress. Mm-hmm. She's very well known for playing Pepper Potts in the Marvel Iron Man series. And she is the ex-wife of Chris Martin, who is the lead singer of Coldplay, i.e. the band where the Kiss Cam happened.
Yeah.
And so they have Gwyneth doing this statement, which thanks everyone for their interest in Astronomer. Mm-hmm. And she does this super cool twist between like reading out questions that they've had, which are like, WTF, what the hell? And responding with, yes, we have Apache solutions for blah, 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 and explaining the actual product that the business sells.
Or does the social media team have room or something like that? And it was like, we do have space at our upcoming conference. I was like, this is great.
Reminding everyone, this is what we do. Here are innovations. And hey, we have a conference coming up in September. So like the perfect response in ensuring that while the whole world's eyes are on you as a company, the things we take away are actually your business proposition. And I was absolutely, I felt proud. And I don't know these people, and they're already way richer than I will ever be. But I was proud of them. I was like, yay them for getting it right in response, you know?
Yeah. They're whoever advised them, their board, their whoever, solid. I'm very curious now to see their upcoming structure, like what now the board does directionally and how they continue this momentum forward. So definitely will be tracking and watching.
But also that's none of the public's business anymore. Like if you don't work there, just get the hell out.
Yeah. Now it's like, okay, we move on as a company.
Yeah.
But I'm very curious now with the eyes on the company, if they continue just to leverage the awareness of the brand and maybe build more of the technology outwardly. So people are like, oh, well, since I know them, like, well, what else are they doing?
Yeah. And I should keep paying the social media team and the PR team because they saved you.
Yep.
So, well done, Astronomer.
Yes, well done.
We've made this show for you, and we want to hear your stories. We have our combined 35 years experience in tech. We have an incredible bank of experts to call on. We are your safe space. So send us your tech challenges, and we'll help you create some draft decisions through some real talk.
You've been listening to me, Mamuna Oladipo.
And me, Oyelayo-Pearson.
Edited and produced by me, Michael Blissa, with theme music by 031 MASH.
Email us at help@lostintechpodcast.com or DM us at lostintechpod.